Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to make a shirt pattern following the basic block pattern that was created in the previous tips and tricks video. You can find the direct link to the video below. I will take the basic block pattern and make the shirt by modifying this pattern. If you click more at the bottom of the video, there's a link to the shirt specification and block pattern file. Feel free to download it and follow along. In this video, I will guide you on how to efficiently create patterns in CLO using a block pattern. The creation of the shirt pattern has been divided into separate videos for the body, placket and collar, and also the sleeve and pocket. For this video, we'll be focusing on the body of the shirt. So, let's make a pattern. If you have downloaded the file from the link, unzip and load the project file into CLO. We can start by looking at this body spec on how to transform the block into a shirt pattern. On the far left is the point of measure, also known as the POM. These are descriptions of each measurement point for the garment within the specification sheet. The spec in the middle of the sheet is the specification of the current block pattern that we're going to start working on. And on the right is the shirt spec, which we'll be making in this video. You can start by closing your library with the shortcut Y, as we won't be using it in this tutorial. To start, I will delete one half of the block, as only half of the patterns will be used to manipulate the pattern. To do this, I will use the Transform Pattern tool shortcut A to select only the patterns on the right of the body, then press Delete on my keyboard. I will also delete the notches and segment points on the block to prevent any inconvenience when editing. First, select the notch tool and drag a marquee box around all the pattern pieces and press Delete on your keyboard. Then select the Edit Pattern tool, shortcut Z, and start selecting all the segment points that do not build up the pattern outline shape. Once you have all the necessary segment points selected, right-click on one of the selected points and press Convert to Curve Point. By doing this, all the segment points will transform to curve points while still maintaining the pattern shape. The reason we are changing the points this way is to prevent changes to the pattern shape. As an example, if I were just to delete all the points by selecting them and pressing delete, you will see that all my curved lines turn to straight lines and ruin the pattern shape. In this case, converting to curve points is ideal. Another tip I would like to share with you is that you can create a shortcut for convert to curve points. In fact, you can do this with all your tools. To do this, you start by going to Settings, User Settings, Shortcuts, Edit, Context Menu, 2D Pattern, and from here you can type in the shortcut for convert to curve points. I will set it as Ctrl+Q. Once you are done, you can press Close at the bottom of the screen. To show you how this works, I will use the shortcut. Just hold down Ctrl+Q and drag over the segment points that you want to convert to curve points. The segment points will be converted whilst maintaining the shape. So if you use the keyboard shortcut like this, you can work on your patterns faster and more conveniently. Using the Edit Sewing tool, shortcut B, I will drag a marquee box around all the patterns and press Delete to erase. This way I can bring the garment back to its basic block. After that, I will remove the waist darts by using the Edit Pattern tool, shortcut Z. The sleeve isn't being modified right now, so I will just move it to the side by using the Transform Pattern tool, shortcut A. Once you have brought your 2D window to a suitable arrangement, you can press the Reset 2D Arrangement tool in the 3D toolbar. This will bring your 3D arrangement to the same layout as your 2D arrangement. To prevent the sleeve from falling to the ground during simulation, right-click on the sleeve pattern and select Deactivate Pattern Only. We will start by focusing on the 2D pattern window. Therefore, I will select the 2D icon in the lower right corner to use only the 2D screen. To start, I will transform the pattern to have yokes and pleats as seen on the center back. First, I will make a yoke using the shoulder dart as my starting point. Using the Edit Pattern shortcut Z, select the dart point whilst holding down Control. You will see two guided coordinate lines. I will use the left line to extend my dart to meet on the baseline. Then, using the Trace Tool I will right-click on the baseline and select Cut from the list. To merge the center back, I will change to the Edit Pattern tool shortcut Z and select both sides of the dart whilst holding Shift and right-click on one of the selected lines and merge. Now we have a back yoke panel. If you see a segment point on the shoulder line, you can select it and delete this point. CLO has also placed baselines of the original pattern outline. To erase these, you can use the Trace tool to delete. Now, by looking at the yoke, you can see the balance is off and therefore needs to be corrected. So first, let's check the dart length using the Z Edit Pattern tool and select the line to see the measurement. To mark out the same length on the center back panel, I will use the Add Point Split Line tool shortcut X. From here, I will right-click on the center back line and type in 2.77 inches into line 1. Now my lines have the same measurement. Then, using the Edit Pattern tool, shortcut Z, I will bring down the yoke and the center back point by left-clicking and dragging and right-clicking at the same time. From here, I will type in 0.125 inches into distance moved. By looking at our flat drawing, we can see the yoke is a single piece. Therefore, we need to remove the curves and merge. From the yoke panel, I will change the center back line to be straight based on the neck point. Using the Edit Pattern tool shortcut Z, select both the top and the bottom points of the center back yoke whilst holding down Shift. Then right-click on the neck point and select Align to Point Y-axis. Now right-click on the back curved line and select Delete All Curve Points to make a straight line. Now, the length between the right side hemline of the yoke and the upper side of the center back body is different. Using the Edit Pattern tool, I can select the yoke line and see the length. From here, I can right-click on the center back line and select Change Length and input the same length. The center back line of the back panel should also be straight, so I will repeat the same steps as I did with the yoke. Using the Edit Pattern tool shortcut Z, select both the top and the bottom points of the center back panel whilst holding Shift. Then right-click on the top point and select Align to Point Y-axis. Again, right-click on the back curved line and select Delete All Curve Points to make a straight line. The center back panel should also be merged, and we will do this later once we've created our center back pleats. Therefore, I won't merge for now and I will move on to the next step. If you've made it this far, we can now add the pleats to the center back. Using the pleats tool found in the 2D toolbar, select the upper and lower points of the center back, then select the pattern to get the pop-up window. If I look at the specification, I can see the half width of the pleat is 0.37 inches. Therefore, I will put the same measurement into depth. Usually, once you enter the value, you can see a preview of the changes you're about to make. However, for this measurement, you can't. The reason is because I've drawn my pleat line on the pattern outline going inwards. Therefore, the pleat is going in the opposite direction to what I want. By selecting reverse direction, you can see the pleats correctly. If you look at the pleats, there are red and blue lines. These are fold angles. The red line is set to an angle of 0, meaning wrong sides together, and the blue line is set to an angle of 360, meaning right sides together. For this box pleat, we need to reverse the line colors. So below, you can select reverse direction. Once you're done, you can press OK. This is how you can create pleats using the pleats tool. The pleats doesn't need to go all the way down the center back, but roughly 3 inches from the top of the yoke panel. Therefore, using the Z Edit Pattern tool, I will select the lines and drag them up whilst holding Shift to lock on the axis grid. I also don't need the segment points and notches anymore, so I will delete the segment points using Edit Pattern. Then I will change to the notch tool and repeat the same process. Moving back to where the yoke and the center back meet, I will mark where the sewing connection between the pleat and the yoke is. Using the Add Point Split Line tool, shortcut X, I will mark 0.375 inches from the center back line, as this is the half width of the pleat. To do this, right-click on the line and type in the measurement into line 1. Now moving back to the spec, we can now adjust the shoulder seam forward measurement. Using Z Edit Pattern, right-click on the shoulder seam and select Offset as internal line. Then, in the pop-up window, type 0.5 inches to match the spec, then press OK. If you create a line like this, there will be no segment point placed on the pattern outline, as the internal line is separate to the pattern outline. To amend this and to ensure simultaneous correction on the shoulder and neck, I will right-click on the internal line and select Extend Trim and Add Point to Pattern Outline. Now, when I click on the point, I get a drop-down menu for both the pattern segment point and the internal line segment point. If I move the internal line, you can see a segment point has been added to the pattern outline. We can now work on the neck width, which will change from 6 inches to 5.5 inches. We will have to change it by 0.25 inches to be half the distance on each side of the neck. To do so, select the Edit Pattern tool and drag the neck point whilst holding down Shift on your keyboard. Move it inwards to reduce, and as you're dragging, right-click and enter 0.25 and press OK. Because I shortened the width of the back neck, I must do the same on the front neck. Repeat the same steps and input the same distance. The shoulder width is 0.5 wider on the shirt block than it is on the base block. Therefore, I will increase by 0.25 on each side of the shirt and sleeve point. The back neck drop from HPS is 0.75, therefore staying the same based on the spec. However, the front neck drop is being reduced from 3.25 to 3 inches. Therefore, we need to add 0.25 by moving the point vertically up by holding Shift and inputting the right measurement. When you increase or decrease a pattern like this, you can edit it on the X and Y axis to the exact coordinate. Now, I will lower the shoulder slope by 0.25 at the same time by selecting both the center front and center back shoulder points. To lock it on the axis, I will hold down Shift. The across front and back from the HPS stays as they are at 5 inches. However, the across front width will increase by 0.75 from 12.5 to 13.25 inches across the whole body. Therefore, half of that is 0.375. The same will apply for the across back. To move the center armhole point, I will drag and move it and type in 0.375 inches. As the back is split by the armhole with the yoke and the center back pieces, I will select both points at the same time by holding down Shift and increasing the distance at the same time to 0.375 inches. After that, I will lower the armhole position by 0.5 inches. To do this correctly, I will select both the center front and the center back armhole points, as well as the dart points, and move them down vertically by 0.5 inches. The original chest line marking is no longer sitting in the correct position. Therefore, I will erase the baseline using the Trace tool shortcut I by selecting them and deleting the baselines. Then, using the internal polygon line tool shortcut G, I will draw my new lines by clicking once at the start of the line, holding Shift to lock my axis grids, and then double clicking to finish off the line. I will repeat the same for the center front and the center back. Now looking at the spec, we can change the chest width at the armhole. There is a dart on the front bodice which will also need to be moved. We can increase the chest width whilst also maintaining the dart length. I will show you that in a bit. The chest width has also increased to 20 inches. To add the distance, we will need to split that over the front and back bodices. Draw a marquee box to select the relevant points at the same time on the center front. Drag and type in 0.755 inches into the distance moved. If you are unsure about the distance, you can also see the increase on the internal line, which will give you reassurance of the calculation you just made. We're aiming for a line length of 10 inches. Similarly, on the back, I will select the point of the chest line and increase it to 10 inches by typing in 0.75. As you can see, the new chest line width is set to be 20.006 once selecting the lines, but as it's a third of a decimal place, it won't actually make much of a difference to the pattern. Therefore, we can ignore and continue. We will now work on increasing the length. We will start here with the center back body length from HPS. HPS stands for high point of shoulder. It means the highest point of the shoulder when wearing the garment. Because we have offsetted the shoulder line and we made it tilt forward, the HPS is actually the internal line where the shoulder line starts here. So when you measure the garment, you will have to measure it based on the HPS from here. Based on the spec length, we will increase it from 16.75 to 27.5 inches. Therefore, using Z edit pattern, we will select both the hemlines and drag down vertically and right click. Under distance move, we will input 10.75 inches to lengthen. Now moving on to increasing the hem width to 22 inches. This will be split over 11 inches for both the front and the back bodices. Still using the edit pattern tool, select the side seam hem point and drag and right click at the same time. Input the value based on the display length value that you can see in the bottom line segment. Repeat the same for the center back. For the shirt tail height, I will select both the side seam hem points and raise the point position by 3 inches vertically up. Now we can add some shape into our hem. I'm going to start by using the Add Point Split Line tool, shortcut X, and right click on the hemline. From here, I will use Uniform Split to position a segment point right in the middle of my segment line. I will repeat the same for the center front and center back. I can now add some shape into my hem. I will do this without using a separate curve tool. Instead, I will use the Z Edit Pattern tool. Whilst using Z Edit Pattern, I will hold down Alt, and you will see that the icon on the cursor changes into a curvature tool shape like this. From this icon, I can now left click and drag to create my curve. As you will see, the curve lines are vector-based and contain bezier handles on both sides. To edit this curve, you can manipulate the bezier handles further using the Edit Pattern tool. Repeat the same process across your hemline to create the desired curve shape. The specification of the dart width and length are also different according to the specification. To edit the dart, select the dart using the Edit Pattern tool, shortcut Z, and then right-click on the dart and select Edit Dart from the menu. The dart arm width means half the depth of the dart, so from here we can type in 0.75. In the length, we can also enter the dart length on the specification sheet, which is 5.25, and then press OK. After entering this, you will see that the shape has also been adjusted, but you can further adjust this by using the guidelines for modifying the actual side seam. Use the red points and drag and move them to create the desired curved lines. However, let's say you wanted to change the shape to be straight instead. You will actually need to delete these points instead. To illustrate this, I will undo my last steps and show you. So repeating the same steps of right-clicking and selecting Edit Dart and inputting the values that I would like, I can now select the red points instead and delete them. This way I will create a straight line. Be mindful of the sort of shape you would like to create once your dart is closed. Sometimes it's worth double checking your work. If I select the dart again, I can see the length of the line is slightly longer than intended. To amend this, I can select the dart point and drag it inwards. The dart will be shortened based on the central line of the darts. If I right click at the same time, I can input the desired value that I would like, always checking that the line measurement matches the one I have on my spec. Due to the manipulation of the dart, the side seam lengths don't match anymore. To rectify this, I will need to start by marking the length of the center front armhole to the start of the dart length on the center back. Using Z-Edit pattern, I can check this length, and then I can use the Add Point Split Line tool and right-click on the center back side seam. Under line 1, I can input the same value. Then I can check the rest of the center back side seam using the Z-Edit pattern. Taking this line measurement, I can change the center front measurement to match. I can right-click on the center front side seam and select Change Length. From here, I can input the same value as the back seam and change the direction to the end. Now we can check the patterns we've made on an avatar. Using the Transform Pattern tool, shortcut A, select all the patterns in your 2D window, and then right-click on one of the selected patterns and select Symmetric Pattern with Sewing, or shortcut Control D. Place the pattern pieces neatly on the other side whilst holding Shift. Once you have a suitable arrangement, you can start sewing by either using the End Segment Sewing tool or M3 Sewing tool. I will start by connecting my shoulder seams to each other alongside the side seams, simply left-clicking on each line. From here I can close my darts, as well as my center back yoke panel and my center back bodice. When it comes to closing the yoke to the body, you need to do it in two separate stages. First closing the yoke to the body itself, and then closing up the darts. When sewing the dart, I ensure that my notches are going in opposite directions and that always my sewing line type is turned. I do this for each internal line. Then I can connect the last segment line to the center back yoke. And finally, I can close my center front line. Now that I'm done sewing, I can open up my split view again by using the icon in the bottom right window. I can then select the 2D arrangement all in the 3D window to set my 3D arrangement to be the same as my 2D. From here, I can select all my pattern pieces in the 3D window and move them up so I have a nice clear view of my avatar. Using the 3D toggle bar, I can go and select the Show Arrangement Points or shortcut Shift F to see my arrangement points. To arrange a pattern piece, I will select a pattern piece and then select an arrangement point in the 3D window. Sometimes the arrangement points are not 100% accurate, therefore I need to use the arrangement in the property editor to do so. Using offset, I can offset the pattern away from the body. I will repeat the same on the center back as well. I can either rotate using my mouse or I can press 8 on my keyboard to change my view. From here, I'll repeat the same process of selecting both the yoke and the center back panels and arranging at the same time. If the arrangement is not correct, you can offset or change the position of the X and Y axis under the property editor. Before simulation, it's always a good idea to check your arrangement. If you're happy with your arrangement, you can turn off your arrangement points with Shift F, and then you can press the space bar to simulate. Now gravity is applied and you can see how your body fits. To make the garment even more accurate, I'm going to merge my center back panels. Using Z-Edit pattern, I can right-click on one of the center back lines and select Merge from the drop-down menu. I will repeat the same on the center back yoke. Always simulate between every pattern change to see the full changes. Before working on this product any further, it's a good idea to have the right fabric assigned to this garment. The fabric that I'm currently using, which is the muslin as you can see in the object browser, is quite sturdy and strong and not giving me a nice fluid drape that I want to achieve with this style. I have several ways of adding a fabric that I want. I can either digitize a fabric myself, I can use one from the default library, or I can purchase an additional one from CLO-SET Connect. CLO-SET Connect is also linked to your library in CLO. By opening the library, you can see that there's a link to CLO-SET Connect, and you can directly link up your CLO-SET account from there. I have also added the link to the bottom of this video if you would like to see more, so please subscribe. Once you enter CLO-SET Connect, you can see that you can purchase some additional garments, fabrics, trims, and avatars. I can also use CLO-SET Connect to connect with different creators and freelancers that are all using CLO. If I click the link for the fabric menu, I will enter the fabric store. There are many fabrics available, so feel free to explore as much as you like. However, for this example, I would like to use a crepe fabric. To do this, I will type in crepe under search for fabrics. Once I press enter, I can see that there is one fabric available, so I will select this. Once I am on the fabric page, I can use the 3D interactive viewer to rotate and preview my fabric. If I am happy with my selection, I can press download. Once your fabric is downloaded, you can use it directly in CLO. If you have your fabric library linked up in CLO, you can drag and drop directly from the library onto the object browser and replace the entire fabric. As you can see, the new fabric is applied, and if you simulate, you will see that there is a new drape. If you are happy with the new fabric you have assigned, we can now move forward with correcting the fit of the garment. To ensure an accurate fit, I need to make sure that my top is in the correct position. To do this in CLO, you will use the avatar tapes from the 3D toolbar. I will select Basic Tape Measure Avatar. From here, I will click once to start and double click to draw my shoulder seam line. I will repeat the same on the other side. Once I've created my tape, I now need to stick my seam line to the tape. Using the Attach to Measure Avatar tool, I will select the seam line and then the tape. I need to simulate to see my changes. You will notice that the seam line has now shifted to be in the position of the tape. To further assist in the accuracy of my garment, I will also lower the particle distance of all the pattern pieces. Select all the pattern pieces and go to particle distance under the property editor and change it to 5. You need to simulate to see your changes. Now that I've made all necessary changes for an accurate fitting, I can review my garment. When I zoom in on the center front neck, I can see there's some gaping around the neckline. As well, when I rotate around my avatar's body, I can see around her armhole there's also some gaping and some inaccuracy in terms of the fit. However, when I look at the hemline, I can see that everything looks quite straight and seam-lined, so therefore I will probably maintain my hemline. Let's start by modifying the pattern on the neck and try to improve on the gaping that we see. Because there's gaping on the front of the neck, we need to shorten the seam length at the front a little bit. To do this, I will select the entire shoulder line and move it inwards by 0.25 towards the center front. Now the length of the center front neck will be shorter than it was before. Because we moved the front neck inwards, the armhole seam on the center front looks a bit tighter and misconstrued. We will fix this later, but for now we're going to move on to the back. We will use the seam line where the yoke and the center back meet to amend the gaping we see on the armhole. We will raise the yoke armhole segment point up by 0.125 inches and lower the same amount for the center back. Whilst doing this, we will also maintain the segment point position on both bodices. Using Z Edit pattern, left click and drag whilst holding shift and right click at the same time to input the measurement you want. Repeat the same for the lower half. In order to see your changes fully, you will need to simulate. Once you simulate, you can see that the fit around the armhole has been improved a lot, and the fit generally around the body sits a lot better with these minor improvements. When looking at the center front neck point on the body, we can see there is a pointed seam line. What I want to do is amend the shaping around this part of the neck so it sits with a clean curve. To do this, I will use the Edit Pattern tool, shortcut Z, and right-click on the center front neck point. From the menu, I will select Perpendicular Pattern Corner. This feature enables you to create 90-degree angles on a segment point line. I'm going to create the 90-degree angle around 0.25 inches from the segment point. And I will also set the direction to end so it's going on the neckline and not on the center front line. Now, as you can see, there's a 90-degree angle set 0.25 inches from the segment point on the neck. You will also notice that the angle has been applied and there's also a perpendicular baseline to mark this change. Continuing on from the center front neck, I will now check the entire neck seam around the whole body, and I will use the shoulder seam connection to do this. Still using Z Edit Pattern, I will hold down Shift and select both the center front and the center back shoulder lines. With both lines selected, I will right-click on the back seam line and select Match Up to Start from the menu. The patterns will be matched based on the neck point, which will give me a good view of the neck shaping. Whilst looking at the patterns, I think the back neck seam shaping looks fine, but I want to fill in the center front neckline a little bit more. To do this, I will use the Smooth Curve tool. With the tool, I will click on the start of the perpendicular baseline and then left-click on the neck. Unfortunately, this is not working for me because the center back pattern is actually on top of the center front. To amend this, I will use the Transform Pattern tool, shortcut A. From here, I will right-click on the center front pattern and select Order Bring to Front. This will position my center front pattern piece on top of my center back. From here, I can go back to the Smooth Curve tool, left-click once on the perpendicular line and then left-click on my neckline. From here, I will select the original neckline and then left-click on the reference line and redraw my curve. Now let's check the shaping around the armhole. If you look closely at the shoulder line, you can see that the front and back panels are slightly different. What I will do first is bring the back panel forward so that I can manipulate the segment point. I can right-click and select Order Bring to Front. From here, I can use Z Edit Pattern and select the segment point on the center back shoulder and bring it forward to align with the center front. When I look at the shoulder seam, it looks like it's put in a little bit. So I will select both segment points and move them ever so slightly to allow a little bit more ease. I will also use the Bezier handles on the center back to curve out the shape a bit. In order to fix the center front, I will first bring the pattern forward, and then using the Smooth Curve tool, I will round off my shape a little bit further. Feel free to adjust your shaping around your armhole as you see necessary, using all the tools that I've shown you previously. Now I can check the seam line where the yoke and the center back meet. Whilst looking at this seam line, I can see that they're quite straight. So using Z Edit Pattern whilst holding down Alt, I will create a slight curved line across the seam. I will do the same for both the yoke panel and also the center back panel. We can now start by checking the shape of our back armhole. I will start by matching up the center back panel with the yoke and checking the shape on the armhole from there. In order to amend the center back armhole first, I will need to bring the pattern piece forward. I will use a transform pattern and select Bring to Front. From here, I will use the Smooth Curve tool to shape out my center back armhole. You will notice that when I try to select both points of the armhole, I am unable to do so. The reason for this is that the segment point on the internal line is also interfering with this. Therefore, I will need to convert this internal line into a baseline. To do this, I will switch to Z Edit Pattern, right-click on the internal line and select Convert to Baseline. From here, I can go back to the Smooth Curve tool, click once on the bottom of my armhole and then once at the top of my armhole. Then I can select the armhole line and then reselect the reference line and redraw my curve. As you can see, I now have a smoother curve around my armhole. I can now realign my pattern pieces to sit neatly in the 2D window. I can either select the pattern with Transform Pattern and use the rotation wheel, or alternatively, I can right-click on the pattern, select Rotate, Y-axis, and then select my center front line. I can repeat the same on the center back by right-clicking on the center back panel, selecting Rotate, and then X-axis, and then I can select the line that meets my yoke. Moving on, I can now check my armhole at the side seam. Using Z Edit Pattern, I can select both lines that match up the side seam with the armhole. From here, I need to convert my internal line into a baseline, so I will right-click on this line and select Convert to Baseline so I have no interference. My center front panel is sat behind my center back, therefore using Transform Pattern shortcut A, I will order and bring to front. Now using the Smooth Curve tool, I can repeat the same steps and smooth out the shape on my center front armhole. I think the new shaping sits quite well across the center front and the bottom half of the center back panel. To ensure the whole armhole fits well, I will line up my center back yoke with my center back panel and check the entire armhole. I think the shaping across the entire armhole looked pretty good. I can now check how our side seam matches up at the hem. Using Z Edit Pattern, I will select both side seam panels and this time I will match up to the end. As you can see, there is a point where our side seam at the hems meet. Therefore, using the Smooth Curve tool, I will repeat the same steps and smooth out the curve of the hemline. I will repeat the same for both the center front and the center back hemlines. Once you are done creating the curve on your hemline, you can rotate your pattern pieces to sit straight again in the 2D window. Now we can check the shaping on our center front hem. Using Z Edit Pattern, I can right-click on the hemline and select Duplicate as Mirrored Internal Line. From here, I can left-click on the center front line, and as you will see, you have a mirrored image of the center front hemline. Looking at this reference line, I can see that there is a dip in the center front hemline. Therefore, still using Z Edit Pattern, I will right-click on the center front segment point and select Perpendicular Pattern Corner. From here, I will square off the center front corner by 0.5 inches from the center front line. Now I will use the Smooth Curve tool to reshape the center front hemline. I will start from the second segment point on the hemline and draw a line to connect just before the perpendicular baseline. From here, I will reshape my hem shape. I will now move on and check my center back hemline. I can see there is a slight dip again at the center back seam. Therefore, using Z Edit Pattern, I will right-click and cut my center back line. From here, I will right-click on the segment point at my center back and select Perpendicular Pattern Corner. Again, I will type in 0.5 into the length and ensure that the direction goes towards the end. The rest of my curve shape looks quite good, therefore I will right-click on one of the center back lines and merge. Now I will select any of the extra segment points that I see around the hem and right-click and convert to curve point. Now that I am done editing my pattern pieces, I can reopen my split view to see my 3D window. Before I simulate, I will use the Edit Measure Avatar tool to delete my measure tapes. I will right-click on one of the tapes and select Delete Measure. I will repeat the same on the other side. From here, I can simulate and see the changes I have made to my garment. So this is everything for the first part on how to modify the shirt pattern. In the second video, we'll be focusing on how to modify the collar and placket of the shirts. In the meantime, if you have any questions or any feedback whilst watching this video, please comment below. Thank you for watching and take care.